Welcome Spartan families and Boardman community. We welcome you to our online Q&A session to talk about how the Boardman schools plan to restart school this year. You know, good advice is if you want to know where you're going and where you're headed, it's always good to know where you came from. So where did our restart plan come from? So let's just take a brief walk through history here. So in the beginning, when we began to design our restart plan, we designed it around 4 cornerstones. 1, to provide proper safety for our students and staff. 2, to provide a rigorous, high-quality education for all students. 3, to provide the necessary supports for all students to achieve, including supports for intervention, nutrition, and social and emotional well-being. And 4, to provide flexibility that can adapt to constantly changing conditions and/or state mandates. So from those 4 cornerstones, the next thing that we did was we surveyed families to see how they wanted their children to learn. Our response was 80% wanted their children to learn in person and 20% wanted remote learning. In person is what we're accustomed to. The only piece we needed to add was the proper safety protocols and safety items. Remote learning is actually a newer concept. So we had to discover new ideas, and we wanted to enhance the successes we had from March through June, and we wanted to make sure we eliminated the pitfalls. Let's talk a little bit about remote learning. Really, there's 2 styles of remote learning. You can use what we'll call third-party academy-style learning that's independent of in-person learning, or you can do simultaneous or near-simultaneous learning that's provided by Boardman staff. Along with that, we asked our principals, what words would you hope parents use to describe our current in-person instruction? This is what they replied. A caring staff, opportunities for all, genuine connections, solid school-to-family, school-to-student relationships, supportive, approachable, plenty of growth and developmental opportunities, and high expectations. Great items, great traits. We hope all our parents would be able to say all of those, or most of those, about the education their child receives. The challenge was how do you take those same traits and apply them to our remote learning design. Taking that into consideration, we as Boardman leaders chose that our staff will provide the instruction. Remote learners are our students, and they deserve to be taught with our staff and with our curriculum. And I know that sounds great, but the challenge then is to build a structure that can support that type of remote learning with those expectations, along with side-by-side in-person learning. So we surveyed staff to find out those who would be interested as remote teachers. Our goal was to match staff directly with students who were going to connect remotely. It was a great idea, but as we began to develop the details, we quickly learned that 7 through 12 curriculum was too broad to be able to achieve that, but we thought it may be possible for K through 6 learners. So at this point, we needed to dig deeper, but we needed accurate numbers. And that's when we reached out to our public again in late July and asked parents to declare if they were going to choose the in-person versus the remote instruction. So as we entered August, our numbers started to grow to over 30% were choosing remote learning. We soon realized that assigning staff directly to remote learning was not going to work with most 4th through 6th grade classrooms and maybe just a few K through 3 classrooms. So that brings us, as we walk through that timeline, to our updated restart plan as released on Friday. To successfully implement our plan and to honor those previously mentioned positive traits about instruction, we had to build time into a teacher's day to attack that goal. Time schedules have been adjusted in all buildings by 1 hour to properly accommodate staff who will be balancing in-person learning and remote learning. So that brings us to today. So our goal today is to hear more about our in-person design and especially our remote learning design and what school will look like as we open on September 14th. So to hear about those changes and expectations for this coming year, we've asked our district leaders to each briefly talk about their specific area to give an overview, and then we'll answer the questions. So I'm going to start over to my right here with one of our district leaders, Matt McKenzie, who's been busy with PPE purchases and plexiglass, overseeing facilities, operations, and maintenance. Matt McKenzie.
Hello, Matt McKenzie, Supervisor of Buildings and Grounds. Today I just wanted to bring a few items that we are going to be installing in classrooms, and then a few items that we're going to use for sanitation purposes. If you can see on the far left there, those touchless dispensers will be throughout all of our common areas and our hallways. We will also have touchless dispensers installed in every classroom. These are some types of desk shields that we're putting in classrooms, depending on application and type of desk that we have, which shield your student will be surrounded by. Some of the sanitation items that we have is we are using a UVC light wand for technology. We're using misters throughout the day and in the evening with our chemical, which is a Hilliard brand QT3. So that will go into all of our misters. It has a 3-minute kill claim, very effective, and continue on to just continue making a healthy, safe environment for our students.
Thank you, Matt. Next, we'll have Natalie Winkle, who oversees food services. Natalie?
Hi, I'm Natalie Winkle. I'm the food service supervisor of Boardman Schools. First of all, I want to say welcome back. I'm so glad you guys are coming back. It's super important that we get to see you again in the buildings. I know that all the cafeteria staff is really looking forward to seeing you again. We have made some changes in the cafeteria. We are marking spots on the floor so you remember social distancing, keeping you at a safe distance. We have removed keypads from the registers, so we're going to be having scan cards and ID badges for everyone. 4th grade and up will have an ID badge very similar to this. It will be on a lanyard like this that you will wear around your neck. It will have this, but it will have your information on it. We're asking that you wear them all day because it's very important that you have that when you come for breakfast or for lunch. Another thing we would like to see is if we could think about going as cashless as possible. So we're asking parents for your help. If you could either go on Pay Schools and make a deposit into your child's lunch account, or you can get that information on our website, or if you would consider sending a check at the beginning of the week or maybe twice a month for your child, trying to reduce the amount of germs that are on money that are going in and out of the kitchens. The ID badges, like I said, are going to be for grades 4 through 12. There will be a $5 fee for a replacement if the badge is lost, so it's real important that we hang on to those badges. Remote learners can still have the opportunity to pick up meals. At this point, right now, the charge of the meals will be whatever the student's status is in school, whether it's free, reduced, or full pay. You can access the online survey to pre-register for your meals on our website, and we're asking you to please register for the meals before Sunday at 3 o'clock so we can have an accurate count for Monday afternoons to have meal delivery or meal dispensing. Brian?
Thank you, Natalie. Next is Ryan Dunn, Supervisor of Transportation.
Good evening. This is Ryan Dunn, Director of Transportation, here to talk about our Transportation Department for this upcoming school year. As always, we will keep safety as our highest priority. Some of our drivers have already successfully started their routes, and it's proven successful. One of the ways that we're going to keep safety as our highest priority is keeping all of our youngest students in the front of the bus, working towards the highest grade students in the rear, as we have always done. We will continue to keep 2 in a seat, which is the mandated guideline, 48 passengers per bus, though most of our buses will be between 20 to 30 students per bus. If the student is with a partner, it will be with a neighborhood friend or a sibling. After each route, our drivers will be responsible to cleaning the buses. Once they get back to the lot, every bus will be fully detailedly cleaned inside and to make sure that there's no germs on that bus. Thank you.
Thanks, Ryan. Our next 3 guests just want to introduce. They won't be giving an overview, but they'll be on hand to answer questions. And actually, to really, truly introduce somebody, Terry Armstrong, today is his first day at work. He is our new treasurer. We're so excited to have Terry on board. He comes to us from Newton Falls, but he has also spent time in the classroom as a social studies teacher. He's been a high school principal, and he's been a superintendent. So we're very blessed to have Terry on the central office team. We want to welcome Terry Armstrong as our new treasurer. So thank you, Terry.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here. Boardman's a wonderful community, and I found the staff and administration and board and everybody that I've come in contact with just to be top-notch people. They've worked really hard to prepare for this year with a safe learning environment, and we're excited to get things started. As a team, we'll continue to monitor any funding that's out there to help with COVID-related expenses as well. But I'm real happy to be here. Thank you.
Thanks, Terry. And next to Terry, we have Katie Fallow, who is our Director of Student Services.
Good evening, Spartans. I just have a quick update for our parents of students with disabilities. There are about 215 of you who have chosen remote learning, and that's wonderful. I wanted to let you know you will receive in the mail in the next couple days some information from my department with a very detailed and individualized remote learning plan for your students that outlines how we're going to get them their services while they're learning at home. So please look for that, and my card will also be in that envelope. If you have any questions or concerns, you're always welcome to reach out to my department.
Thank you, Katie. And next to Katie is Jared Cardillo, who's our Director of Instruction, and he'll be helping to answer questions in our second session here, especially as questions come in that are specifically asked about curriculum and remote learning. To my left, we have our building principals, and each building principal is going to give a quick overview of remote learning and how things may look a little different on September 14th. High school principal, Cindy Fernback.
Good evening, everyone. We're very excited to be opening up school for this 2020-21 school year. Our teachers are in the building, and we're getting excited to see all of the kids. For our students who are selecting to be remote students, I think the most important thing to remember is that our remote students have a real high school schedule. And for us, that's key, because what we want is for flexibility so that when a 9 weeks does come to a close, if a student does want to return to in-person, that's what we want to have happen. So our remote students will have a real schedule. The students who are learning remotely are asked to check in the morning at 7:30, between 7:30 and 8:30, and students are expected to be working during the school hours. So students should be getting up, checking in, so we know that they're okay, and we don't need to send someone out to check on their well-being, and then they need to get busy with their schoolwork for the day. Remote learning will be a combination of videotape instruction, and there will also be opportunities for real-time Zoom connection with classes that are having perhaps a discussion for the day or presentations that our remote students would want to be part of. The students will have a variety of ways to interact with their teachers, including office hours, which will be for high school, 7:30 to 8:15 every single morning. Our teachers have that time to really focus on being excellent remote instructors. As far as remote instruction goes, it truly is a work in progress. We are already busy doing professional development on new ways of connecting, looking at Zoom and Loom and every other way that we can connect with our kids at home. So it's a little bit of a work in progress, but I'm feeling really good about the enthusiasm that our teachers have to be excellent remote instructors. So thank you.
Thank you, Principal Fernbeck. And one point of clarification, when we released our video about announcing the updated restart plan, the high school start time said 8:20. That's actually the bus drop-off time. The true high school start time is a 1 hour delay. It's 8:44. So I just want to make sure that's when classes start. It's not 8:20. It's 8:44. Next is Glenwood Principal, Glenwood Junior High School Principal, Bart Smith.
Good evening, everyone. Our remote learning looks a lot like the high school. We do have a traditional schedule for our students that they need to be following throughout the day. Our students will have the opportunity to have office hours from 7:20 to 8:20 in the morning, and our teachers will be uploading videos and also going live in their classroom. So the teachers, the individual teachers, will take the students through the expectation, whether they need to get on live during the day, and then the office hours in the morning will be broken down by subject area. Monday being math, Tuesday being English, Wednesday science, and Thursday history, and then our specials on Friday, which will be broken up into half-hour increments, music going off first, and then having our arts, health, and PE. We're also very excited to return. I would turn people to our website for more information regarding the expectations and also the opportunities that we have provided for our families. We still have the opportunity for our in-person learners to come in and walk through the school to make sure they're familiar with their schedule for the next 2 days, which is a great opportunity for our kids and the families that have come in have been very appreciative of that thus far. And it's very, very important from September 8th through September 11th that our remote learners sign up for a half-an-hour increment throughout the day on our website to get all the necessary materials, important information that they need to have a successful remote experience. Like everybody else, we're very excited to be back, and I hope to see you all soon.
Thank you, Principal Smith. Next is Principal Randy Evie of Center Intermediate School.
Good evening, parents. At Boardman Center, currently our teachers are working on preparing videos for a remote virtual open house, which will be put on our website starting this Friday, so you can access that. Letters went out earlier this week as far as identifying what team your child will be on, so there will be subject and team-specific information in those videos from the teachers. They will all be addressing what will be going on in-person learning as well as the remote learning opportunities that our students will be having. At Center, we're going to be a little bit different than the high school due to the age of our students. All of our new instruction will be videotaped and posted to the web, so you will have the opportunity to access that when it is convenient for you. We will also be having morning office hours that you can come in or you can access directly with teachers via phone or through email to answer any pertinent daily questions that you have. So those will be an opportunity for both those. We will also be setting up Zoom instructions with live Zoom meetings with your teachers throughout the day and throughout the week with our remote learning.
Thank you, Mr. Evie. Next is Stadium Drive Principal Michael Zaccoli.
Hello, Boardman families and Stadium Drive families. Remote learning will look probably somewhat similar, maybe a little bit different at the elementaries, but pretty much similar. Our office hours will be from 1:10 to 2:50. And one of the things that we wanted to strive for, as Mr. Saxon mentioned, was making that personal connection for our students and the teachers. Our ultimate goal is to have as many students return back to school as possible. So we wanted to make sure that our students are going to be able to have the opportunity to see their teachers' live instruction throughout the week, as well as teachers for recorded lessons. So our ultimate goal is to make those connections with our teachers and students. And as everyone else previously mentioned, there will be a combination of recorded lessons as well as live instruction. The benefit of the recorded lessons for our younger students in elementary will allow for parents to be able to watch those at a later time with their child, whether it be the weekend or later on during the day after possible work hours. We are doing one dedicated remote teacher in kindergarten will be Miss Kaleva, and a dedicated remote teacher in second grade will be Mrs. Miner. First and third grade, we'll have teachers work with students both in person and remote. And as previously mentioned, some schools do things a little bit different, and that is solely based on numbers of the students that we have that have gone to remote learning. We actually started having students come into our building this week for benchmarking purposes. It was great to see those students come into our building. I know they were excited seeing their smiling faces, and we are ready to go and looking forward to the start of school on September 14th.
Thank you, Principal Zaccoli. Next is Principal of Robinwood Elementary, Principal Billy Joe Johnson.
Good evening, Boardman families. Our remote learning looks similar to Mr. Zaccoli's at Stadium, but we do have one remote teacher per grade level at Robinwood. And after we do our benchmarking next week, the teachers will get a hold of all families and let them know the designated time that your child will be Zooming each day or at least 3 days a week. As Mr. Zaccoli said, we will not only have the in-person Zoom, but we will also have the pre-recorded lessons along with the activities and assessments on the Google Classroom where parents and students can get on and find those at a later time during that day. Other than that, all three elementaries are running pretty similar. They will have office hours from 1:10 to 2:50. So any questions, you can call in, email, and they will also have a Zoom link that you can possibly Zoom in and ask questions live with them also. That's pretty similar to the other two.
Thank you, Principal Johnson. And finally, West Boulevard Elementary Principal, Principal Al Cervello.
Well, good evening, everyone. I'm glad I went last of the 3 elementary schools, so I could just say ditto. Yes, the remote at West Boulevard Elementary School looks very similar to the other 2 elementary schools in Boardman. With regard to students and class lists, at West Boulevard, what we're looking at is that roster of students that teacher has is that teacher's students, regardless if they are remote or in person. So, which really makes it nice for consistency purposes. With regard to the remote piece, there is going to be the expectation of having office hours where the students and the parents are going to be required to meet at those office hours. There are going to be Zoom meetings for live instruction. And then, as Mr. Zaccoli and was mentioned, that there's going to be the recorded piece as well. So we are looking forward to a great school year. We're also in the process of having our virtual open houses like the other buildings are having. More information will be sent out later during this week regarding that, but that will take place next week prior to the start of school on the 14th.
Thank you, Mr. Cervello. And so that's concludes just the brief descriptions and a little bit of intro from each building and each department. Next, we're going to switch over. We have 2 school board members with us today, School Board President Vicki Davis and School Board Member Jeff Barone. They have the questions that have been submitted and are being submitted, and they will ask the questions on behalf of the community to the appropriate district leader. So, Vicki, Jeff?
Very good, thank you. We're going to start with transportation. So these questions will be for Ryan. Is the bus pickup schedule going to be posted, or will it be mailed out?
We have not ever mailed out, at least in this current times, mailed out the bus schedule. As of last year, we started putting the bus schedule on the school buildings, on the doors at the entrance of our elementaries, our center middle school, Glenwood, as well as the high school, to make it easy for parents. Another way to streamline this, we're also putting on the Remind app for each individual school, so you can find out your bus number as well as your bus pickup time.
Very good, thank you.
Thank you. Ryan, is a seat on a bus guaranteed for a child who changes at the end of the grading period from remote to in-person?
Absolutely. There's room for all the students. We have not taken them off the list because we know after, hopefully, we go back to normal times, that those students will still be welcome on the bus and there'll be plenty of room for them.
Thank you. And finally, will the bus driver clean after each group of students?
That's correct. After each route, right now we'll be on a 3 to 4 tiered route system. So after each of those, the driver will be cleaning up the bus.
To continue, will they sit 2 per seat and every other seat?
Currently, there's no guidelines, mandates, or rulings on that. We're allowed to have 2 in a seat, but there's nothing about having every other seat filled. Just we're allowed to have 48 students on a bus.
And finally, how can the driver control the students keeping masks on and facing forward?
Just like with any role on the bus, the driver is going to do the best that they can to ensure student safety and to make sure that everyone's following the rules. If there's a discipline problem, they will take care of it, and the mask situation will be handled the same way.
Thank you very much. We're going to move on to general instruction, so these will be for Mr. Saxton or Mr. Cardillo. With an hour cut from in-class instruction, how will this affect the everyday in-class curriculum? And what will be eliminated from our students' daily schedule?
It's a pretty broad question because that can vary at the different grade levels. For example, high school has a 51-minute class, and I think they've been reduced to 45 minutes?
40.
Yeah, 40 minutes. So they just cut equally, and I'm sure Glenwood, along a similar vein. For the ones for the buildings that have class schedules, that's a little bit easier to do. But as we get to our lower elementary levels, they're a little more flexible. I know I had a parent call the other day who was very concerned that we're just going to cut art, we're just going to cut music, we're just going to cut lunch. No, we're not doing that. Art and music are very near and dear, but it will be adjusted. K through 3, they don't really go by bells. They have a lot more flexibility. We're not cutting the basics. I don't know if any elementary principal wants to chime in. I don't know if I butchered that a little bit, but
No, that's actually very accurate. We're not cutting any programs. We are losing 5 hours of instruction a day, or a week, so it does look a little different.
I think it's important to note also that the instruction that's being received by a student in person will mirror the instruction of a student who is learning remotely. So even though we cut the school day by an hour for students, it doesn't mean that students who are learning remotely are just going to get an hour of instruction. All that did for us, as Mr. Saxon stated, was give our teachers more time to prepare for both settings. But the pacing and the instruction will be very similar for those who are in person and remotely, because we understand that our students are eventually going to come back to us, and we want to eliminate as many gaps as we possibly can. So I think a better way to look at it is not what's not going to be there, but understand that it's going to be equitable for those who are in person and those who are at home.
All right, very good, thank you. Question number 2, if all Ohio schools are on the same state guidelines for hours required, how is it that other school districts, such as Canfield, attend an additional hour each day than Boardman?
So the question is about how does that 1 hour that we've trimmed out to buy time for teachers to coordinate in-person remote learning, how does that impact state guidelines and impact requirements for hours? I want to say about 5-6 years ago, the state transitioned from minimum number of school days to minimum number of school hours. And when we transitioned, we're well above the minimum hours for elementary, for middle, and for high school. So obviously, cutting that hour down does trim us back. But one thing I want to keep in mind is that remote learning doesn't necessarily stop when the school day. That's more the traditional thinking. And I think one of the things we've learned is we have to grow as educators. We have to, my favorite word, transform our own industry. And I think one of the biggest transformations is that we learned in March through June that learning doesn't happen from 8:30 to 3:30. It's not put in a box, and we have to get out of that concept that learning can happen, and kids will be learning in that additional hour. And the other thing is that in-person learners need to learn how to learn remotely just because they've chosen in-person, because there's always a chance, we can't ignore the fact that there could be the chance that the governor comes on and says, look, I'm switching the whole state to remote. And so we're not going to be caught by surprise, and our in-person learners can't be caught by surprise. So that hour also helps them learn remotely. I don't think I covered most of it, Mr. Cardillo.
Yeah, I would just say too that we're making investments both in technology and software that help us instruct students beyond the traditional school day. So one of the, as Mr. Saxon mentioned, one of the lessons we learned is that even though the school bell may ring at 3 o'clock, it doesn't mean instruction has to stop. So we've made investments from K to 12 on programs that can be utilized at home. We're utilizing Google Classroom where teachers can communicate and send out assignments to students at home. And some of the software that we have, parents can actually do with their children at home. So lesson learned, and we're really excited about it. We're making some nice, solid investments, even in technology. We're hoping that at some point here real soon, we're going to be one-to-one with technology from grade 7 to grade 12. So a lot of exciting things are happening. We're trying to find every silver lining that we can, and we feel those are just some of them.
I want to add one more piece. Boardman Local Schools did file a remote learning plan with the Ohio Department of Education, and by doing that, that does waive those minimum hours. So it gives us the freedom and flexibility to do that out-of-box thinking and learning.
Thank you, Tim. Next question, what is the process to acquire technological assistance like Chromebooks, Wi-Fi, etc., and how will multi-child families be handled?
And I don't want to assume anything, but I'm assuming that's a remote family asking that question, because obviously the in-person, they get into school, but the remote learners say, okay, I have this technology, I have an issue connecting, and how do I get help? And that's one of the lessons we learned in March through June. And I can tell you, Mr. Cardillo and our technology coordinator has spent a lot of time on technology and how that looks, and I know Mr. Cardillo has a great answer for that.
Yeah, Chris has reviewed, our tech officer has reviewed the inventory for the district and has a game plan. We will, in fact, provide a Chromebook to every student who needs one, who's learning remotely. And I emphasize those who need one because obviously not everyone will. And those will be distributed at the building level. Our administrators did a wonderful job last year. We left school on Friday and never came back and weren't expecting that, but our administrators did a wonderful job getting technology into the hands of students who needed it. And we're going to follow that same roadmap because it was so successful. So Chromebooks will be provided. Even if there are multiple children in a family, we will provide a Chromebook to those who need one. And I'm not sure if Mr. Saxon just mentioned this, we just found out that on Friday we're going to find out how much money we received in a federal grant, which will allow us to purchase hotspots for those who need them. So, once again, we're trying to make the best of it, but I think we're going to be able to accommodate all of those needs technologically. It's also probably a good time to plug that on the homepage for our school district, our school homepage, there is a section down the left-hand side under, I believe it's links, and it is titled Remote Learners Tech Help. And that has been developed by our tech team. And what that is any parent in the district who's having an issue with technology can go on to that, fill out a form, and we're going to have a team of people looking at that every hour trying to address those needs. So if you have any technology needs, once again on our homepage, it's going to be called the Remote Learner Tech Help. I believe it's up right now and running. And if you find yourself having a situation once the school year starts, simply fill out that form. It'll take you 2 minutes, and we will get back to you as soon as possible.
And just to add to that, one thing we talk about remote learners. Again, I just want to reiterate, our goal is to not be confined in our thinking. We have to be adaptable and flexible. So we have to think about the situation in which if the governor were to give us a mandate or the district would have to go to full remote, we also got to be prepared to support all learners if they switch to remote. So that's also important to us, and we're also preparing and gearing up for that. And that's part of those steps so that if we do get switched to 100% remote, we can also support the people that went from in-person to remote. So that makes sense.
Thank you, Tim. Thank you, Jared. Next question. Do we as parents print out and record our students' temperature and symptoms on the document you provided, the health checklist, each day as a record that temperatures are being taken at home, and what do we do with it?
That's a very popular question. So let's talk a little bit about that. And I asked the people at home listening to hear my heart a little bit. This entire plan, its foundation is trust. And so parents are trusting us to connect and provide a high-quality education with the remote learners. And parents who send their kids to school are trusting that safety protocols are in place and that we're going to be able to safely and properly educate their students. Trust, it's like that. It's the glue that holds it all together. We also have to trust families. So we ask families to do their part. There is a symptoms checklist that is on our restart plan. I think speaking from the heart, I think when you ask parents to fill every single one of those boxes out, check and bring it in every day, that does not show trust. We need to trust our parents that they're going to do their responsibility in the morning before they put a kid on the bus or bring them to school. Check the symptoms. Temperature is a big one, but it's not the end all those symptoms. Our employees, the same thing. We trust our employees are doing that. We trust ourselves as leaders that we're doing that. And so, no, to answer that question, it sounds like we have a long answer. The answer is no. That is part of the trust, that we trust parents are doing their job, and they're trusting that we do our job, and that's how it works together. We use that cliche, we're in this together. That's part of it. That's part of being in it together.
I think it's important to note, too, that the updated restart plan has been posted on our webpage. So some of the things that we are mentioning or referring to can be found in the updated plan. I think it's been up for a couple days, but if you didn't know that, there is a new version, an updated version of our restart plan on the district homepage.
And it refers to those symptoms.
Right.
Has some nice flow charts also. So.
Very good. I'm going to ask a question that is also coming in live, so it's obviously important to our parents. I'm not sure if you guys want to answer it or if we want to have each individual principal answer the question, but are children wearing masks while sitting and learning in their seats?
I'll start, and whoever wants to chisel away at my answers, that's a state mandate. Students are to wear masks. Staffs are to wear masks. There's no way around that. Now, let's also talk about being reasonable and being human. I think it's hard for anyone to wear a mask 7 hours, 5 hours. So we have to find time that's appropriate and safe. So if to say that it's 100% mask, 100% all the time, I think that's not reasonable. But the expectation is, yes, they're wearing masks. We leave it up to our staff and our principals to find time that it's appropriate for maybe to get a break from wearing that mask. And I don't know if anyone wants to chime in, but it'll be different for every level because instructions in class design is different for every level.
Very good. Next question. What are the class sizes now that some students have chosen to learn remotely?
Well, if true averages work out, which they never do, all the class sizes would be reduced by about 32%. Class sizes are different in every building, but you could say like an elementary class size, I don't know, let's throw a number out, it could be 20 to 24. So if you take 30%, that's 6 or 7 kids less. One of the reasons why class lists have been so delayed is because we're waiting to honor parents' requests and to balance class sizes. We don't want one class to have 5, another one to have 25. And in previous years, that's a little bit easier to do. It's never a simple science, but this year has made it a lot more complicated. So our goal is to balance class sizes and to have that true 30% reduction. You know, it just depends on what the initial starting class size is, but you should see about 30% less in each class. Will it be perfect? Obviously not, but that's a pretty good rule of thumb. I have support for the principals on that.
Okay, terrific.
It's principal approved.
Thank you. Since the starting hours have changed in some schools, will we be able to switch to remote learning since the pre and after school costs will cause a financial hardship for our family? Both parents work and the child will have to be pre and after school for over 3 hours per day.
Yeah, that's another question that's pretty common. As details have come out and they see different expectations, people may feel like, well, that's not what I signed up for, so they want to know if they can switch. We've had a few of those, and so let's go back to what I answered. We want to balance class sizes. So if I announce right now that you can switch at any time, I will have 6 very angry individuals over here because they're trying to balance class sizes. They're trying to make it all work. They're trying to make sure there's social distancing and spacing and balance remote learners. So we have to have a hard stop. So we've talked about this. So we're saying Thursday at noon. Am I correct? Yeah. Thursday at noon. Everybody hear that? Principals? Yeah, write it down. All right, so you guys want this live. This is truly live. Thursday at noon, just asking parents if you have to switch, then we have to draw a line at some point. And again, we say it's a 9-week commitment, but we're starting 2 weeks late. It's a 7-week commitment. So live with the decision for 7 weeks, and we're gonna be flexible, and we're gonna be able to adjust, and we'll evaluate our processes and our plans, and we may adjust, and parents may be able to adjust.
Thank you, Tim. Are parents notified if a child in the class has tested positive for COVID-19?
You know, if you would have asked us that a couple days ago, it's one of those things where everything changes because as the governor comes on, I think we all get a little nervous when the governor comes on too because we don't know if it's going to impact decisions we've made. The governor's been pretty clear about reporting, so they want us to report, but understand HIPAA guides that also. We can't give names. We cannot report. Our goal is to work with the county health department. If we have a confirmed case, a student has a confirmed case, let's say a parent calls in and says, my child has a confirmed case, we will work with the health department. The health department will then contact and work with that confirmed case to determine the contact tracing, which is within 6 feet for 15 minutes or more. And then those families that fall into that contact tracing definition will be contacted. Obviously, they'll know about the situation. But then we plan to, as part of what the governor says, but we've always planned this, is to let parents know that there was a confirmed case in West Boulevard. There was a confirmed case at the high school, a confirmed staff member at Center. So that will be like a dashboard on our website so people can see that. So.
Good. If a student is required to quarantine due to a possible exposure or having a symptom, even if determined not related to COVID, how will it affect attendance? Are they able to do work online and therefore technically still attending? I know there are a limited amount of hours a student is allowed to miss, and I would hate to see kids getting in trouble or having to go through the truancy process due to this. Or, on the opposite end, missing a perfect attendance record due to this.
Well, first of all, attendance is governed by the Ohio Department of Education in the state of Ohio, so we have to follow their guidelines. Have they given us any flexibility? Not at this time. Could they? They could, but we still have to follow the attendance rules, whether they're in person or remote. I think, if I heard that question correctly, one of the questions was, if a person is at home but can still connect remote and they were in person, that may depend on the length. For a day, maybe not, but if we know that person, even someone who's asymptomatic, who's healthy but has been quarantined, they can connect remotely if we know it's going to be a longer absence, and they would be considered a learner. I don't know if principals want to add to that, because
yeah, absolutely. We've set at least I know K through 12, I believe, has set up a forum where we're able to have kids, if they have to be quarantined for a certain amount of time, jump onto the Google Classroom. I know for Glenwood, all our Google Classroom codes are online currently, and every student in our building is going to be part of the Google Classroom within the period they are assigned. So if they need to be quarantined for 14 days, they would just jump right into the instruction on the Google Classroom, which is going to mirror as closely as possible the instruction that is in person. So the answer would be yes.
So just maybe for clarification, if I've heard you correctly, so if I'm a student that's been quarantined, if I log on remotely, obviously that verifies my attendance for the day. So I would be considered a remote learner. I would be in school even
Correct.
though I'm not in person. So
Correct.
That's the key. And I don't know if someone said it earlier, I think so. I mean, there are attendance requirements for our remote learners.
Yes.
Logging on is their key to attendance. That's their check-in. So,
Correct.
So if you log on remotely, if you're in person, that shows you're in school, obviously, and they participate for that day.
Correct.
I would also add that attendance is probably more scrutinized and looked at, and more time is spent on attendance maybe than it ever has been in education. So my advice to a parent, if you're in a situation that even resembles this, is to call the building administration or your counselor, and they'll work with you. So attendance is something that we take very seriously. Obviously, there's a correlation between that and a student's success, but we want to have a successful experience for your child. Simply reach out if you have any questions, and we can help you solve that.
Next series of questions are for you, Mr. Cardillo. The first one is, will remote learning be an option for this entire school year or only the first 9 weeks?
I think a lot goes into that question. Obviously, it starts with where we are with the pandemic. I think the answer is, if it is needed, we will provide it. We're obviously going to follow state guidelines. We're going to continue to communicate with our community, with our teachers, with our staff. If it is needed, it will be provided.
Thank you. If I am homeschooling during the first 9 weeks, when do my options to transition my student back into the classroom begin?
It's something we're starting to talk about, but our primary focus is getting the school year started right now. I think once we get in for a week or two and we get settled, we realize with only 7 weeks of instruction, that's going to be here sooner than we'd like. So we've already started those discussions. We will continue to have those discussions, and they will be communicated to parents once we have a final answer on that. And we will communicate like we always do on several different platforms, whether it's through Remind, through our website. I know our principals send calls home. So we are just starting to have those discussions, but it will be addressed and it will be communicated.
Good, thank you. Will remote learners be learning simultaneously with those in class, or will it be like last year, with teachers posting assignments and due dates, with the student working at their own pace?
Just to reiterate a little bit of what's been said, the important thing is that the pacing and the instruction will be similar for both. Simultaneous, not in every situation. As the principals outlined, it may be a little bit different in each building. What we promise is it's going to be a Boardman teacher, it's going to be the Boardman curriculum, and it will be seamless between what's going on in the classroom or whether someone's sitting at their kitchen table getting the instruction. So.
Very good, thank you. Next is, please explain how 1 hour of instruction a day for remote learners is considered fair and sufficient education for these students.
I think I can give almost the same answer to that one. I think there's some common things there. Basically, what we are saying is Boardman teacher, same pacing, same instruction. The instruction may be live, it may be recorded. Once again, it depends on the age group. There are parents who want to be there with their children when that instruction is taking place, so we're offering a recorded option. Parents work, and they want to be there to help their child, especially the younger ones. So that will be up to the building, to teacher, and to the grade level specifically.
And I heard the question a little bit differently. It sounded like they asked how is just 1 hour of remote instruction fair? I think that's a bad assumption. The 1 hour is dedicated for our staff to plan, instruct, and connect. One of the things we learned was that parents asked for more personal face-to-face time and live instruction. That's that 1 hour they get that face-to-face time. It's not just 1 hour. Instruction can go on all day. That 1 hour is dedicated for a focus on remote learning, for planning, for connecting, and for instruction. But instruction is not just contained in that 1 hour.
Thank you.
Mr. Cardillo, why is it that you didn't dedicate one team per grade for online learners, especially for elementary and middle school students?
Once again, that was our initial, probably 3 months ago when we started having these discussions, that was our initial goal, to have just remote instructors and just in-person instructors. It pretty much was eliminated 7 through 12. The offerings that we have at Glenwood and the high school are extensive, and we didn't want to limit any offerings that we had. For example, if you pulled one science teacher at the high school, that teacher would be responsible for 7 different classes, including an AP, which that person may or may not be certified to teach. So 7 through 12 was not possible. 4 through 6 also became a great challenge, and we found that given the schedule in place, we could meet the needs of both those types of learners. We were able to do it a little bit in the elementary, but even at that, different grades had different numbers, choosing to go remote. So in a perfect world, that would have been great. And I can tell you that we tried like heck to make that happen. We all felt like it was the best thing. But once the dust settled, the plan that we have is the one we have to go with. And that's it's great for kids. It's not like we settled for anything. It's just a different way of getting it done.
And just to add clarification for that, in grades 7 through 12, it was more curriculum driven. Like Mr. Cardillo said, one of the blessings of having a great district like Boardman is the width of our curriculum, the offerings we have. So for one science teacher to offer all the science classes at Boardman High School is impossible. Now, when you get to K through 6, that's why in my opening statement, we thought it was possible, but here's a real life example. One of our elementaries, we have 100 kids in, let's say, 2nd grade. Real example, 50 of those kids have chosen remote. We have 4 teachers in that building, so we have a choice to make if we try to do the one-to-one. We could take one teacher and ask them to teach 50 kids online and dedicate 3 to the in-person, which would give us nice numbers, 16, 17 kids per class. But that one teacher teaching 50 online, that's disrespectful for those kids that have chosen remote and does not honor the pledge that we made about true, authentic education. We could dedicate 2. Okay, that's a little better. So now 2 teachers teaching remote. This is starting to sound like a math problem. 2 teachers teaching remote, 50 kids, that's 25 kids per teacher. And then 2 teachers in person would teach 2 classes of 25. Now we can't respect social distancing. So we got a problem. So the way you solve that is you have to split it up and teachers teach both in person and remote. So you can have both the social distancing and you can have the authentic experience of the remote. That's what happened.
Thank you, Mr. Saxton. Mr. Cardillo, your final question, this series of questions.
Okay.
Why aren't you live streaming instruction or at least giving remote learners the same kind of attention and time for instruction?
I feel like I'm being interviewed. I feel as though I've answered that question, but live streaming is not off the table. That may become an option. Some of the purchases that I talked about can assist in that. We may move more in that direction as teachers get more comfortable with this process. But also, when you get into the younger grades, it's a little bit different. When you're teaching a child how to read, boy, is it going to be nice to have mom or dad next to them, helping him through the instruction, helping him through the lesson. So I don't think it's something that's not going to happen. I really think we're going to evolve in that. But for right now, we're just making sure we're providing both live or recorded instruction.
Good, thank
And
you.
before we go on, I do want to introduce another member of our leadership team. Way to my right, but your left if you're watching, would be Amy Radenovic. She's our communications coordinator, and she is helping to monitor the live stream, the live questions coming in. She just informed me she's got a couple questions she'd like to pose that just came across.
Yeah, there's a few more questions. There's actually quite a lot of questions that are coming over, and we want to just address a few of them. Is there a page that remote parents can offer, that they can offer remote parents for more assistance in a pinch due to work schedules and working families, since they may not have the flexibility to be home? So is there a place that they can go for more information on learning how to help their children with remote learning?
Great question. We have also just developed on each building page, for example, for Mrs. Fernbeck at the high school, it will be titled BHS Remote Learning Help Center. If it's a stadium, obviously it'll be called the Stadium Remote Learning Help Center. That was just uploaded, I believe, today, and will probably be finalized by Friday. But that's basically a link for parents where they can go, click on that link, and there will be an actual icon or app picture of the programs that we're using in the district. If the parent clicks on that, there will be instructional videos, very short instructional videos that parents can follow to see how to access anything that's online. So we have both a hotline, so to speak, or a link they can go to if they're having tech problems, but we also have another link on each building page that will help parents with remote learning.
Okay.
And I would also add, if any parents have any suggestions or any needs, to simply email me or contact my office, and we will provide them whatever support they may need.
That's one of the next questions is there a possibility of setting up Zoom peer tutoring, which is, like I said, a lot of times questions are coming to us from parents that are giving and sparking more ideas and more discussion. So we appreciate that. And if you could basically, I guess, send some
Email me or call me. Yeah.
send those to Mr. Cardillo, and Director of Instruction, because we've gotten several parents who've offered even their services who are staying home with their own children, saying that they'd like opportunities to host maybe small groups of learners who are remote learners, but to give them that same feel of learning together safely. Yeah, so we're entertaining all those ideas. We want to make sure that we do it safely. But it's something, so keep those questions coming in, and the particular email that we have set up, we're trying to funnel those to the right departments. So, thank you.
Very good.
Back to President Davis.
There we go. We are going to move on to the individual questions per building. So we're going to start with the elementary schools. First up is Robinwood. This is from a dad who opted for remote learning for his child. Will books be provided for remote students, and will assessments be performed remotely?
Yes, consumable books, also the technology, will be given out to students during the phase-in days next week. So as they come in and we assess the students, they will get all of their consumables that they will need for their online learning.
Very good, thank you.
Just to add, any student sitting in a class that has a workbook, the workbook will be provided for students who's learning remotely. So in some instances, it may be a digital copy, not a paper copy, but the materials will be the same for both in-person and remote learners.
Thank you. Second question for Robinwood. How long will the live instruction be? How often? Will the scheduled times be consistent for live instruction, lunch, specials, etc.?
After we do the assessments next week, teachers will form groups and they will get in contact with you. All groups will be at least 30 minutes a day. We're looking at probably 4 days a week, if not 5, if we can fit those groups in. So they will get that live face-to-face, but then they will also have the lessons pre-recorded. So not only do they get that half an hour to 45 minutes of direct live instruction. Then they also have the pre-recorded live instruction for the other lessons for the day, along with their assignments that go along with those. I think did I get all of that? That was a long question. I think so.
Too good? Yep. Okay, next series of questions is for Stadium Drive. I understand that they are going to do virtual open house. Will that be done from inside the classrooms?
Open house will take place at the school. For most of our teachers, it will take place in the classroom, but some of our grades are looking at doing a whole grade open house. So for example, our third grade that work in bipods, they may do an entire third grade open house. So if that's the case, it may be from one teacher's classroom, but you will be able to at least see into a teacher's classroom during that open house.
Very good, thank you. Second question for Stadium Drive is how will lunch and recess be handled?
Lunch this year, what we are going to do, and probably going to be very similar for the other elementaries, we are going to use our cafeteria and also half of our gym. So in grades kindergarten and first grade, we are going to have those students eat in the cafeteria. Second and third grade, we'll rotate on a weekly basis. One of the things we've talked about is trying to get the students outside as much as possible. So for that lunch for the grade that is eating in the classroom, we are encouraging our families to maybe bring a beach towel or something like that and almost treat it as a picnic opportunity. Our staff is going to utilize other parking areas, which will then allow for vast parking spaces or parking lots for our students to enjoy to get outside. For recess, that is something that will be used for teacher discretion because our day has been cut down to a 1:10 ending time. So that is something that teachers will utilize at their discretion to determine when it is a good time for maybe students to take a mask break or even just to stretch their legs, get outside.
Very good, thank you. Last question, but I believe it applies to all our buildings. If our daughter is not feeling well, will we be able to attend the virtual classes or get the assignments to do the work remotely?
Yeah, I think it's similar, probably going to be very similar across the board in buildings, and just like Mr. Smith said, we're going to be using Google Classroom in all our classrooms as well, so that student, if they are quarantined and have to miss up to 14 days, that's something they will be able to log on to their teacher's Google Classroom and participate in the activities. Like we mentioned, it's our hope to try to mirror the in-person and remote learner as much as possible.
Okay, the next series of questions would be for Mr. Cervello. This kind of sets up the question here. It says, my son will be starting out as a remote learner in first grade at West Boulevard. Will there be a daily schedule of times he needs to be online with the teacher?
Well, yes, the online time that the student would have to be on with the teacher would be a scheduled time that is coordinated between that classroom teacher and the parent. Because obviously at the elementary level, we need the parent participation within the online format. So yes, absolutely, there will be a time when the child is required to be with the teacher for an online instruction.
The follow-up question to that is, first grade is an important year for reading instruction. Will he have one-on-one or small group time for the teacher to guide him in reading?
Oh, that's a great question. Yes. I feel like I'm just saying yes a lot. Yes, there will be small group guided reading instruction as well as intervention through Zoom with the classroom teacher or an intervention specialist, Title I teacher. That is all going to be taking place online for remote learners.
Very good, thank you. These questions are for just the elementary buildings in general, so any one of you may answer. My child was recognized as gifted. Will this be factored in with remote assignments?
So I think one of the things that we're going to do is try to personalize the instruction as much as possible for our remote learners. So if a student is gifted, I'm speaking for the other principals here, but we'll do everything we can to meet the needs of that child, whether it is through small group instruction. We could target their WEP and different things as best as we can for that remote online learner.
Thank you.
I could also add too, I don't know if I'm on or not here, but I can also add too that if any parent had any question about that, they can also contact Marilyn Sheets at marylandsheets@boardmanschools.org. Marilyn is a wonderful support for our teachers and our students and our families that are gifted. So once again, that's marilyn.sheets@boardmanschools if you have any other questions in regards to gifted.
Very good, thank you. Second question. I receive a supplies list as a remote parent. Am I expected to provide classroom supplies?
I know we sent supply lists home with our class assignments, and we sent those home in case parents decide to come back the second quarter, so they're already prepared and know what they need for classroom. But there will be some supplies they do need at home, such as crayons and pencils, just the basic necessities to complete those assignments. But the class lists were basically made for if they come back the second 9 weeks, then they already know what to purchase.
Thank you.
Thank you. Will elementary parents have conferences with teachers, and will they be virtual?
Well, I'll answer that. Yes. So,
New word.
yes. We have always tried to get all of our parents in at the elementary level to meet with the teacher regarding their child's academic performance and social interaction. So, yes, one of the things, even if you're a remote learner or in person, we will be trying to schedule all of our conferences with our parents remotely.
Thank you. If my child is a remote learner in elementary school, will they ever have to go in person for anything other than the assessment at the beginning of the school year?
Well, I was going to use Mr. Cervello's word, and that's possibly yes. So with regards to this, we're going to go with how comfortable the parent is to bring the child in. And we felt that from that 110 to 250, that would be a great opportunity to utilize that time at the elementary level to bring in students that can meet with a teacher in a small group setting or even a one-on-one at different times throughout the year to meet their needs.
Very good, thank you. Okay, we're going to move on to BCIS. First question, how will chorus classes be held at BCIS? I'm concerned that many children singing in a single room is not safe.
Right, that is a very serious concern that we have. So our chorus teachers have changed the curriculum from a more performance-based. This year, all of our chorus classes will be based on music appreciation type of curriculum. They've set up new objectives for that, but it will be a music appreciation class instead of a performance-based singing class this year.
Very good, thank you. I've got one live question that came in. Are students changing for gym class?
At BCIS, they will not be changing in grades 4, 5, and 6 this year. We will close off the locker rooms, so they are going to be doing some more physical fitness type activities. So gym class will also look very different this year, but they will not be changing or be required to change and bring a change of clothes this year.
Thank you.
Will remote learners need to purchase things like notebooks and binders, or will everything be submitted online?
This year for the remote learners, it will be submitted online. It'll be very much like Billy Joe said, as far as we did provide a list of supplies for those students. If they choose to come back later in the year, they would need to have those supplies. But for our remote learners, initially, it'll be just basic things as pencils or pens that they can complete some things, but it will all be done online.
Thank you. Will there be web this year? Will there be recess?
As far as our web program, trying to reduce the large numbers, we're going to delay the start of that to kind of see how the year goes. So it will not be starting at the beginning of the year. We're looking to, our guidance counselors, along with Mrs. Dravecki, are looking to implement that slowly over the course of the year. So we're hopeful that that will be able to happen. As far as recess goes, we were also, again, we used to have large numbers and large masses, and trying to reduce that. We have groups of students being assigned to individual teachers, so there'll be small groups Teachers will have the discretion to take them outside and to do some different activities, but there will not be the large recess we've had in the past this year.
Very good, thank you. And your final question is a three-parter. What will the day look like for BCIS remote? Are they covering this in the virtual open house? And are there set times they need to be on Google Classroom or check instruction videos?
Great questions. Our teachers are providing virtual open houses, and that's all of our academic teams that will be presenting information that will be available starting on Friday. All of our special area teachers will also be providing information of how remote instruction is going to take place. So also, our teachers are going to be recording that instruction, so it will not be live at the high school, so that parents can work with their kids throughout the day or evening to access the remote instruction that will be available. And as far as there will be times for live communication through Zoom and through emails and phone conversations, there will be office hours that will be set by each academic team and special area teacher that will be posted so that parents will be able to communicate directly with teachers at that time.
I think Amy Rodanovic has a couple questions coming in.
Yeah, one for Mr. Eby as well, so while you're still on him, it says, are students not changing for gym class?
Students will not be changing, right, as I said earlier, will not be changing for gym class.
Okay, sorry, I missed that one.
That's okay.
I apologize.
But we're sure now.
This one just did come in like a few minutes ago. If we choose, this is for Robinwood, if we choose not to bring a child in person for the assessment next week, then is it done online, when and how?
There is part of the assessment that can be done online. Some of it is face-to-face. But if you choose not to, that is fine. Just give us a call, let us know, so that we can definitely mark that child down. We would appreciate if adult would come in anytime between 11 and 2:30, any day next week, to pick up at least their materials that the students will need at home for virtual instruction.
I would just like to add to that also, strongly encourage parents to try to find a way to get that done.
To the assessment.
Benchmarking students and finding out where they're at helps us close gaps. It helps inform instruction. It's such a wonderful tool that we have now. I would really hate to see any child not be benchmarked. So I would just encourage any parent to work with their administrator of that building to make that happen. It's so very important.
Right. And the assessments too, correct me if I'm wrong, for elementary principals and all the principals, if you have them coming in, everyone has masks, they're practicing social distancing for those who are worried about coming into the buildings, correct?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Okay, I have one question before we move on to Glenwood. It's a overall district-wide. I want to know the attendance policy for students attending in-person classes. I have a son with asthma. If he is sick, will he be staying home? And his brothers may as well, as a precaution. How will this be counted?
I mean, it goes back to what we said earlier, the attendance policies, the attendance guidelines are not Boardman local policies. They're Department of Education, State of Ohio policies. We have to follow those. The nice caveat we have is, again, this is how education has been transformed. A year ago, we would never say that a student at home is actively engaged in instruction and could be counted for attendance. But if that student, again, I'll speak on behalf of the principals and I give them permission to correct me, but if that student connects remotely and is a valid log-on, is a participant in the remote instruction, then it would not count as a day of absence. Correct?
Correct.
Very good. Okay, for Glenwood, I've got two questions. First one, if our child would need to be absent, do we call the school and send an email?
Yes, at Glenwood, you've received a packet of open house flyer, and it has the actual attendance number in there. So if your child's in person or online and they won't be able to make it to school, yes, we require for the parents to call in and mark that they're absent so we can track that.
Okay, thank you. Question number 2, does our student have to make an appointment for a teacher's office hours?
No, the office hours for the teachers are set. Like I had said before, maths on Monday, English on Tuesday, history's Wednesday, science is Thursday, and then Friday is our specials and there's designated hours. There may be times where a teacher decides to go live in their classroom, and then that office hour would move into their classroom time. But our students are required to follow their scheduled time on just like their traditional schedule. So if they have a English class at 8:20, they are required to be doing their English work at 8:20. If assignment is due for the in-class participants, it is also due for the remote participants at that point in time.
Mrs. Fernback, these next few questions are for you. Will students be permitted to carry their backpacks to class to eliminate time spent at their lockers? Sorry, that was really by accident. My son has expressed concern about the amount of students in the hallways and at the lockers during class changes.
So the answer is yes. They will be permitted to carry book bags this year. First of all, my BSTM people are very happy. They're nodding. Yay. We did reassign all of our lockers, and so every student will have a new locker. They are spaced so that it's every other locker to give them a little bit more room. And they will be able to visit their lockers when they need to, or if they want to carry everything that they own in their book bags, they can do that as well. Seeing what the rest of the question was. Regarding the hallways and traffic, and I know that's coming up in a minute too, but I'll go ahead and answer that now. About 33% of our students are opting to be home. So the first thing is we've already reduced a lot of our hallway traffic just with that. We are going to ask our students to travel on the right side of the hallway, very much as if they were driving a vehicle, so that it will control a little bit. But again, that's not anywhere near that 15-minute intimate contact period that we would have and need to do a contact tracing on. So the kids only have 5 minutes to travel in the hallways. Every student will be wearing a mask. They'll be traveling on the right side. So that will help a little bit with some of the hallway concerns. And having those book bags is a really nice silver lining to the pandemic.
Very good, thank you. We have two more questions before we finish up our Q&A. How will science labs and other hands-on work be accomplished for remote learners?
And that's for me, Vicki?
Yes.
Okay. So computers are wonderful things. I mean, it's so easy now to be able to do computer-guided and computer-aided lab experiences for our kids who are at home. And we're going to try to incorporate some of those same computer-guided, generated lab experiences for our in-person students as well. And then in terms of, our art classes, for students who are remote and still wanting to take an art class, we've already worked with our art teachers to arrange for pickup days when remote students can come and pick up supplies that they're going to need for the next unit that's upcoming in art. So we're going to do everything we can, really and truly, to try to make that remote experience a parallel and very satisfying experience for our kids at home.
Good, thank you. And this is the last question also for the high school. How will class changes and cafeteria be handled in terms of social distancing?
This is the thing that wakes me up at 3 o'clock in the morning when I can't sleep. I'm thinking about my cafeteria. So I've done really nothing but think about the cafeteria. And the first thing that we need to do and we have to do is to have assigned seats in the cafeteria, which will aid us should we ever get into a situation where we have to do contact tracing. Students have assigned times to come into the building. The seniors start this week on Thursday, and I'm going to allow them to select the seat that they would like to sit in. Typically, in a lunch at Boardman High School, we would have over 400 kids in the cafeteria. Currently, we have 219 seats in the cafeteria for students. We will also be utilizing some academic areas for students to be assigned to eat lunches. So we will not hit a 6-foot distance in our cafeteria. That would be virtually impossible, but we will get a 3-foot distance for our kids, and we are going to try to incorporate some plexiglass shields in there as well to maybe help with adding a couple more seats here and there. But I am worried about cafeteria, and so I'm giving it 100% effort. And when I feel good about it, you can feel good about it at home too, because it means it's going to be okay.
All right, that's all we have.
Amy, anything
I have
coming?
one more from Stadium Drive. Will parent pickup during dismissal look different this year?
Yeah, parent pickup is still going to be on the same side of the building. So for our new families, that is going to be on the side of the building that's in the parking lot located between Stadium Drive and Westminster Church. So we are anticipating a larger number of car riders this year. So because of that, we are going to make some changes. Just like Mrs. Fernbeck said, one of the things that keeps her up at night is cafeteria. Dismissal at the elementary is something that keeps, I think, many of us up at night. So we will roll that plan out to our parents once it is finalized. But we're going to do everything we can to make sure our children are safe and the numbers are smaller in different areas. So yes, it still will take place in the same area, but we are looking at probably having different grade levels go to or get picked up at different doors. And one of the things that we will likely do is if you have siblings in the school, you would go to the door of the youngest sibling to pick up both children.
I have a live question coming in from my brain. This goes to Mr. Cervello. Hey, will pick up and drop off look different at West Boulevard? Is there anything different about West Boulevard, Mr. Cervello?
Yes, it will. It's going to be a huge, huge change from years past. We were fortunate in order to get a driveway off of Crestview Drive between the church and West Boulevard, a one-way in drive onto what was the playground, still the playground, but also now going to be a parking lot. So when the children, if your child is if you're bringing your child to school, you will come in off of Crestview off onto the playground and drop your child off at the respective doors. So if you are in, say, kindergarten, you get dropped off at one door. If you're in first grade, dropped off at another door. In third grade, second grade, off at another door. So it should alleviate the flow of traffic in our front parking lot down West Boulevard. I'm sure the neighbors are happy. Busing is still going to be in the front lot, and if you are bringing your child to school and you're coming in the back lot now, and there's a block up and it's after school hours started, then you obviously have to drive around to the front lot and sign them in the office. But other than that, yes, I'm very excited for the new flow of traffic at West Boulevard.
Yeah, it's great to see today. It's nice to see that finally get done. So, good?
I think we're pretty good. And any questions, just let everyone know that any questions that we were not able to get to or we skipped somehow because this is, there's a lot coming in. On that, you will be responded to through email and it'll be put on the FAQ.
What's the email address again for people to send questions?
You're going to ask me that. SpartanRestart@boardmanschools.org.
Right, and just so you know, when an email's sent there, Amy monitors that and she gets it to the person. They can give the best and quickest answer. So it is constantly monitored, and that's one of our tools to help service our parents.
Yeah, we will get you an answer. It may take a day or two, but we'll get you an answer.
So just some closing thoughts. One thing that didn't come up that obviously is a common question. We do have an after-school care program and a before-school care program at some buildings. And I know that's a concern, especially when we changed some of the time. So we've had some questions about that. One piece of good news, typically the rate is $5. So one of the things that we know is concerning is that extra hour, either at the end of the day for the elementaries, for our three K through 3s, or the hour before, especially at center, since they're on that 1 hour delay. So I've been in discussion with Karen Candle right now. This sounds like a commercial. It's not like if you act now in the next 30 minutes. It's not that. But we've taken just that 1 hour that we've changed. So that 1:10 to 2:10 at the elementaries, for example. Typically that'd be $5. We've worked with Karen. We've got that down to a 50% reduction to $2.50. So I'm happy to announce that. So if someone has to use that new hour we created, that new hour would be at $2.50. But we're going to continue to meet about that this week to see if we can potentially even lower that more. I don't want to promise that yet, but we can promise the $2.50 charge if someone needs to use that 1 hour before school or after school care. And then in closing, You know, it's just ironic. I just think we're in a performing arts center, so let's do a performing arts analogy. There are so many people that have worked all summer that I will call stage crew. You'll never see them, but boy, do they make all the actors and performers look great. And those performers obviously are teachers, but the people that are making them look great, I would say that is our Matt McKenzie. Well, Matt's off stage right now, but Matt McKenzie, his crew, the maintenance crew, the cleaning crew, just tremendous work this summer to get the building ready for September 14th. Our food services have to undergo a transform change. So compliments to Natalie and her crew, what they did in the spring to feeding families and to prepare for new changes to feed families for the start of school. And obviously transportation. You know, all those different entities have been transformed. But also a big thank you to our teachers who it's felt almost a little normal because staff have been in every day, meeting, working, collaborating, learning. It's been a great experience getting ready for the students. So just a big thank you to our teaching staff. They've had to adapt. They've had to learn how to do remote and in-person and to balance that. And they're transforming themselves. And obviously the leaders that we have here that are thinking outside the box, coordinating, working, planning, and then eventually we'll be overseeing and making sure that we're adjusting and making sure kids are safe and making sure kids are learning. Last thing, thank you parents for spending the time. If you're live tonight, thank you for tuning in. If you're watching this on a recorded rebroadcast, thank you. That's important because it means you're committed to Boardman, you want what's best for your kid, and this has always been about a partnership. It's been important that, I know the term's together, but together means a lot of things. Together as a staff, but together as a community, together as teachers, together as administrators, together as parents, together as students. We have to keep communication lines open, use the email, pick up the phones. If you have a building-specific question, feel free to reach out to the different building leaders. District question, reach out to our district leaders. We want to continue to engage that conversation. Last and final words. You probably thought I would never get there. Something I want to remind myself often. We remind each other, but I also want to remind our parents and our students. And you just got to win each day. One thing we learned is in the spring we thought this was only going to last 3 weeks. Then we thought maybe it'll last 6 weeks. Then we thought, okay, maybe in May. But then we thought, okay, we'll finish out the school year, and then when September comes, we'll be back to normal. And we learned that lesson that we were too short-sighted. How long will this last? That's a great question. Time will tell, but I think we have to get out of the stuck thought process that this particular date this is going to end, or after this date it's going to end. We got to be prepared to be flexible and adjust, and be prepared for just a school year that will be still very authentic, but things are going to look a little different, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But I think the best thing we can do when you tackle a large problem is you win the day. You win each day. When you win one day, next thing you know, you've won a week. When you win a week, then you can win a month. When you win a month, you can win a season. When you win a season, you can win a year. And that's what we need to do. We just got to focus on each day we have the doors open, kids are learning, that's a win. And we're going to put a series of those together. And the final thought is that the changes we make now are for now. Okay? They're not forever. So some of these changes are fantastic and will transform education. Yes, those will be forever. But some of these things we have to do for now to make things work. Doesn't mean it's going to be for 2-3 years, but they're for now. We will get through it, but they're not forever. But they're to make sure kids are safe and make sure learning is authentic. So thank you for your time. Have a great evening. And like I say, stay engaged. And we look forward to our kids coming back either in person on September 14th or virtually on September 14th. Thank you very much.